Oh shoot. Okay. This is kind of uncomfortable. I need to, first of all, before I begin the video, I literally have to mention setup. Need to figure it out. Bear with me. It's a mess, but we're not gonna talk about that because that's not the point of the video. Hello, it's me, Ezra, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Now, with that being said, this video is actually going to be a fun one because we are going to be talking about the different types of witches that exist. Now, of course, I'm not going to be mentioning all of them because that would take me literally all day and some. I'm just going to be talking about a few which I think are the most important because they are like the most commonly known. I'm going to be talking about two that are, I believe, not the most known, and then I'm going to be talking about maybe like one that I'm probably gonna make up like as I go. Not sure, we'll see. But yeah, I do want to mention a disclaimer, and that is the fact that you do not need to label yourself because you do not want to put yourself into a box that will essentially limit your potential. When you focus too much on the label, you're stopping yourself from growth. You're meant to start out as a seed, end up as a tree. Now stay as a seed, okay? Now, it can also be confusing when it comes to learning about the different types of witches because there's a lot of overlap. Not just on the ones that I'm gonna mention, but also on other ones that I'm not mentioning because it would be a lot. You are literally meant to just be a witch. A witch, such a big term. It encompasses so many practices, so many beliefs, and bestie, we're meant to grow, you know? We're meant to bloom like a flower, you know, like period. So with that being said, let's begin with the solitary witch. Now, the solitary witch is like the name states. It is basically a practitioner who practices solo. Now, whether it be by a choice or not, that really depends on the individual themselves, because it could be because they like to learn solo or because of the lack of a teacher, guide, friends, group, coven that also practice the same thing or that, you know, wants to practice with them. Their practice tends to be eclectic because of where they get their information from. For example, let's say that you have no idea what magic is, just starting out. If I were to give you 3 books, top of my head, Scott Cunningham, Julia Diaz, and Morrison. Dorothy? Wait. Yeah, Doris, I think it's Dorothy Morrison, Utterly Wicked. If I were to give you those 3 books, you would be literally starting out with completely different books. And your practice would, for the most part, be influenced by them. You would have your own tradition, literally. Of course, this is just an example to pretty much, you know, tell you that if you are solo, your practice will, for the most part, be influenced by the knowledge that you are being provided or the ones that you're actually seeking out. Now, with the solitary practitioner and eclecticism being mentioned, let's move on with the eclectic witch, which is me. Now, an eclectic witch is basically someone whose practice is unique and personal to the practitioner. Essentially, what we do is we borrow beliefs and practices from different traditions and add it to our own. We basically like create our own tradition as we learn and grow. Now, with that being said, that also means that, you know, every single eclectic witch basically has a different practice for themselves, you know, a different set of beliefs. We might have similarities, but for the most part, our practice could look entirely different. I mentioned solitary and eclectic. I think it would be wise enough to mention the coven witch. Now, the coven witch is actually a witch that practices in a coven. Now, they generally tend to practice in a coven. They may choose to practice alone themselves, but for the most part, they tend to practice in a crew. Whatever happens in the coven, whatever happens, you know, while they're together, the spells and ritual that they cast, whatever their beliefs and traditions and practices that they have is unique to that own coven. I'm not entirely sure if all like Alexandrian and all Gardnerian covens practice and believe the same thing. I'm assuming they do, because it is just one, like it's a set tradition, but I'm not entirely sure about that. With the coven, witch being mentioned, it would also be wise to mention the hereditary witch or the generational witch. Now, this is basically someone who is born into a family that practices witchcraft. Now, it can literally be your mom, your grandparents, it can be your great-grandparents, it could be one or both. I do want to mention that not every person that practices witchcraft calls themselves a witch. Now, that can, you know, be for multiple reasons such as safety. Having mentioned the generational witch, the green witches are essentially the witches who work with the natural resources that are provided from the outside. Now, these are all the herbs and all the roots and all of that good jazz. Now, generally, they are into herbalism, gardening, and in fact, they do tend to use their own herbs, plants in their own practice. It's worth mentioning that they're also very into what is healing, you know, tinctures, balms, anything that is a tonic, etc. And they basically want to be as green as possible, as more organic as possible. You can also add the fact that they do love to spend time in nature and basically communicate with the spirits of their land, which is essentially, you know, plant spirits. Now, having mentioned the green witches, I also want to mention the hedge witch. Now, that when it comes to the hedge witch, I do believe that this is a term that pays like homage to the traditional like wise woman or wise man, and you know, just in general like the cunning folk of like the past, like the olden days, you know, that like prehistoric era that nobody remembers about. I'm joking. So in the olden days, it's basically like the person, okay, think of, you know, the movie Brave, the witch who like lives like really far, it's like in the woods, like basically that kind of witch. Or like, I believe it's also kind of like the witch in Princess and the Frog, the blind lady. Think of those two. I think that witch in Princess and the Frog lived somewhere far away, you know, I believe. If not, just think of the Brave witch, because that's the only one that I know for a fact lives like far. So essentially just, you know, think of that witch, basically the witch that lives like at the edge of the forest. You know, you have to go through a journey to find them. And basically the hedge witch, just like the green witch, you know, she studies the plants and their local landscapes. I also want to mention that overlap, they're also into herbalism, healing, folk magic, gardening. They're also into divination. And I would like to mention that I do believe that the term hedge witch, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that the term hedge witch kind of got modernified, if that's even a word. I don't think so. And that's because I've noticed that from that, it turned into, it's basically the practice of traveling through the veil and into the other worlds, you know, the spirit realm, the astral realm, etc. Now, the kitchen witch essentially is someone who incorporates, you know, their magical practice into anything that is consumable that they make, such as cooking, baking, you know, anything that they prepare. They're generally very into healing, folk medicine, herbalism, gardening, because they tend to prefer having, you know, anything organic. For the hearth witch, now I want you to think of the green witch and the kitchen witch combined. It is basically someone who focuses a lot on the well-being of the self and of the home. So it's not just the house, but the things that encompass the home as well. Now, these witches work with spirits and deities of the home, and their house is basically like their sanctuary, so the place that they refer to for safety, whether it be emotional, physical, safety in general. Let's go for the hoodoo witch. Now, when it comes to the hoodoo witch is also known as the conjure witch or the root worker. Now, hoodoo, not to be confused with voodoo. Now, voodoo is a religion, and that's a whole other topic that I do not feel qualified to talk about because I know nothing about it, or at least not enough. Basically, a hoodoo witch is someone whose spiritual and magical practice come from enslaved African American origin. Now, there is a debate about whether or not white people can actually practice hoodoo, and that is because, you know, hoodoo basically came, or it was created as a form of the people of color to pretty much protect themselves from white people. So that's that. My own 2 cents about that, it's that I don't think that we should be focusing too much on skin color, but more so ethnicity. I don't think actually, sorry, that your ancestors would be mad or be rejecting you just because you were born literally with something that you literally had no control over. If anything, and this applies to literally everyone, I believe that we are all miracles, or they're miracles. We're living the lives they basically prayed for. I see ancestors as being extremely happy and like thankful that we are where we are right now because they were not able to get it. So I don't think that they would hate you for being white. Like, you know. Now, if you are the Caucasian is Caucasian, I don't know what to tell you, my guy. Let me tell you something. I think that you should explore and see how it goes. I would not know how your ancestors, if they were to have been slave owners, don't know how that could go. You also have the option to simply just not work with them. Never thought about it like that. There's not a lot of information about that either, at least not that I'm aware of. So that's a good journey to probably explore. Might do that, might not. Not sure. Now, when it comes to hoodoo witches, they are generally into Bible prayers versus the Bible. Let me tell you something. Back in the day, white folks was trying to make them eat that shit up. My guy, adaptability. Saints, boom. African gods, let's go. Loa, I think they're called. So yeah, and actually when it comes to Bible prayers, I believe that Psalms is what they tend to use more, at least from what I've seen online. They're also very into ancestral devotion, so basically connecting with your ancestors in order to break generational curses, such as, for example, beating your kids, abuse, working too much and not having enough time for you, enough time for you or your loved ones. Let's say staying in toxic relationships or becoming the person who you did not want to become, such as your verbally abusive mother or father and your physically abusive mother and father, or either or. You know, I don't think that when it comes to breaking generational curses, it's ever about infertility for life. Because, my guy, I don't think you would be here. Or generational famine, or I don't know, the first child of every man would be this and that. I don't think it's about that, but more so about simply healing the things that were literally forced down the slaves until now. Quite literally. That's basically what they want to achieve. They want to achieve complete liberty from all of the things that were basically taught to them throughout the whole bloodline. Now, even though my computer shut down, I do remember the last type of witch, and that is the Christian witch. Now you would be like, what the heck? A Christian witch? And that's wrong. Like, you can't be a witch and a Christian. Actually, you can, bestie. That's just something that you really have to explore really deep, because there's like, from what I could find, right? Barely. From what I could barely find, it's a very personal practice. Like, you really have to like adapt a lot, and that's because quite literally it's hard to find other Christian witches. Like, talking about magic, even in in Catholicism, you will definitely be looked down upon, even though we technically practice the same thing when you think about it. And when I mean we, I mean literally everybody who practices witchcraft. Like, we light candles, we say prayers, whether they be to the same God or not, or a different being, it is the same thing. A Christian witch is essentially a witch who has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and also practices witchcraft. It's also someone who simply believes in superstition and also has a lot of like folkloric practices or beliefs, I guess, in their own life, such as knocking on wood, not sweeping on someone's feet, spilling salt over the shoulder, simply just praying in front of a candle for whatever your intention is. You know, that itself is witchcraft. So it's basically believing in the teachings of Jesus Christ and then incorporating any form of witchcraft to your own practice. I think being a Christian witch is quite an interesting concept because of the fact that there's so much that you can do with what you're given. You can literally use so many of the things that the Bible states in your practice. Like the same things that hoodoo witches use, like the same verses that hoodoo witches use for their practice can also be used by Christian witches. For whether it be protection, whether it be for, I don't know, money, whether it be for food, whether it be for, you know, guidance, literally anything. It's just about adapting and all of that good jazz. Now, I am going to attempt and create like my own type of witch. Now, I'm gonna choose, I don't know, music. So let's talk about the musical witch or the lyrical witch, I guess, I don't know. And basically, this is to give you the example that literally anybody can create a type of witch. It's just about being creative, giving a little description and what they do that pretty much makes it. But like I was saying, musical witch. So the musical witch is someone who incorporates the art of words, rhythm, melody into their lives to invoke the magic within. They are the witches that focus their intent on evoking that inner inspiration, that inner loving, that lustful feeling, that sense of protection, that heavenly feeling of divine guidance onto others. They are the healers of the heart and soul. And literally it's just a song about, you know, like protection or I don't know, love, or just a song that talks about sex because, you know, lustful, or it can be a chant, you know, like I said, I don't know. I think overall, like the whole thing about types of witches, it's only fun when you understand that, again, you're a seed meant to be a tree, not just stay in that little box where there will be no growth. I think growth only happens when you put yourself outside of the comfort zone. It's just, please, just, you know, don't limit yourself, again, from a seed to a tree. To give you like one example of like someone who I think is like a musical witch, from the top of my head is Aurora, which by the way, highly suggest, full promo, non-sponsored, but full promo for her because she deserves. Aurora, freaking love the queen. There's so many songs that she makes that literally are to freaking scream for. Like, oh, there's a song she made a cover for called Thank You. Incredible. The song Queendom, highly suggest. Above all, that is the best song. The song called River, Seed, Animal, Different Kind of Human, something like that. I forgot. It's actually a really good song. There's another song, Love, Lust for Love, something about love. Point is, she has so many good songs that I feel like when you listen to them, you would pretty much kind of like understand what I was trying to mean when I said invoking this feeling of love and evoking, like that's pretty much, you know, like literally when I say that, when I'm talking about like musical witches, she is what I think about. I think the whole topic of like types of witches is really interesting, but it can be very, very limiting. And with all of that being said, I do want to know what you guys thought of the video. Do let me know if there's a type of witch that you really, really like, and how would you describe your practice. Let me know what you think about the whole discussion, debate about, you know, like the hoodoo practice being meant for just people of color. I would like to know, which when you think about it, it does make sense because literally it was, you know, created as a form of, you know, protection, right? As a form to defend themselves from the oppressors. And yeah, I really would like to know like your own thoughts about that. And yeah, with that being said, if you guys like the video, be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I shall see you guys later. Oof, it is getting dark.